Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. We're in 2024. This gun has arrived today, and this is one that's been procured specifically for night vision reviewing, because I seem to have so much night vision gear at the moment that I'm short of guns, and I've got to, I want to run some of them simultaneous. So here we are. Now this is a Savage B17. Now, if some of you remember, I did a review on the B22 about 3 or 4 years ago. It was one of the first videos I made for my channel when we sort of started just before or just at the start of COVID. And I rather like the B22. So anyway, this is the B17 because the 17 HMR is a superb cartridge around me for sort of rabbits and hares and this kind of thing, blah blah blah. So this is a fairly impromptu matter. We've got a magazine there, maybe I've got a bolt, a few bits and bobs in there, there's a trigger lock, this, that and the other. Now, I don't think there is actually officially an importer for Savage rimfire rifles at the moment, because this rifle came from the previous importer. It was kind of end of line and it was hard to refuse, to be honest. And Viking Arms are going to be the Savage importer for now, but they're mainly, I think, going to do the larger precision rifles and hunting rifles and not the rimfires. But who doesn't love that as a little rimfire? Now I'll say, this is the B17, the B20, this is 17 HMR, the B22 is 2.2 rimfire, as is fairly obvious. And again, I'm just doing a little bit of an off-the-cuff review on this one here, because it's arrived this morning, the box has just been opened, and let's have a little look at it. Sorry, I had a quick break there for a telephone call. My truck is ready from service. Right, bolt's in now. So there we go, that's bolt travel. Let's have a little look at the magazine. The magazine is a 10 round unit, or is it a 5 round unit? We shall soon see. I might actually get some ammunition out and do all this on camera. I think that goes in latch back, latch forward. Let's just have a little look at this now. That is, there we go, so that's magazine in like that. And there we go. It's pretty straightforward, but because we're in an MDT chassis here, now this is part of the reason I wanted this rifle. Let's go through it. As I said, I get a lot of night vision stuff to review, and I like shooting rabbits, rats, the odd fox, some hares, this, that and the other. So 17 HMR is ideal. What have I got that I wanted here? Well, I wouldn't necessarily have wanted a heavy barrel, but that's just what it happened to be. It's 18 inches long, which is about optimum. 16 to 20 anywhere is fine. Going for a 20 or a 24, it's always doing it, adding weight. So 16, 18, good with that. It's screw cut from moderator. It's 1/2 inch fine, so that's 1/2 inch 28, I think, off the top of my head. So I've got a moderator for that. Number one thing that's most important is I've got a Picatinny rail. Night vision manufacturers, thankfully, are switched on to the fact that a lot of their stuff is military derived to start with anyway, but nowadays Picatinny is the way forward. And this not only gives me a good mounting solution, it gives me quite a lot of space on the rail to both adjust and fit whatever scope I'm using. And that spaced rail is actually quite a long way forward, because rimfires are fundamentally smaller guns than centerfires. And a lot of the time you end up with a scope that's actually pushed quite a long way back towards your face because of the physically short dimensions of the rifle, and this does make it a bit longer. We've also got an extended bolt handle which isn't travelling too high. It's got just under 90-degree lift on that one, and that's one fingertip operation there, so that's good too. The safety catch is on a tang back here, and that also, so that's going to safe and fire. It's not the easiest of accessible things to get to, but that's going to be fine. You'll be okay with that. It's not super quiet either. It's got a bit of a click on it, but there we go. And this is one of those reviews I can just do totally shamelessly without watching any P's or Q's on it. One of the next things is I wouldn't normally choose a chassis rifle for hunting, because I don't really like the shape of them for hunting, and they've often got a lot of corners and edges on things that can snag and catch on closing. The other thing is, when you're out shooting, especially at night on a pest control gun, it's cold. Get hold of that, it's freezing cold, and you don't necessarily always want gloves on. I'm going to really dish the dirt on some stuff now, because you get quite a lot of night vision gear, and if you put gloves on, you cannot use it, because the buttons are so small and fiddly and close together. By the time you've got some thick, heavy gloves on, or even thin gloves, you can't feel the buttons or even access them. So number one, that's one of the reasons I don't really want a rifle that when I get hold of, it's going to be ice cold and it's going to drag all the heat out of my hands. Now the grip's AR-15, it's rubber, that's fine, that's not going to be a problem. The forend, and this is why I don't want a chassis rifle for hunting, but there are advantages to having a chassis. Number one, we've got a super stiff free floating barrel, that's never going to be an issue. We've got a stud there so I can put a bipod on it, no problem at all. But of course we've also got M-lock on 3 sides. And the thing I really like about the M-lock is I can put a big illuminator on this gun. I can either put it on the left side, the right side, even put it underneath depending on where the bipod fits. And of course it's not going to interfere with the scope or give me any kind of reflections off the back off the barrel moderator, things like that, because I can space it away and it's just going to give me less issue if I've got the illuminator up there. And of course the illuminator at the front where your hand is, you've got pretty much press button on off, so that's good. This has got, I don't know what the magazine is yet, I think it's maybe a 10 round, but it might be a 5, I don't think it says on it, but we shall see. I might try and get a couple of spares of those because they're always useful. Picton reel we've covered, bolt handle we've covered. The trigger, now a lot of people really don't like Savage Aki triggers. I actually don't mind them at all. I watched a review the other day and the guy doing the review was like, well, the gun's okay, but the trigger's not very good and I can't really cope with the trigger and it's really, really difficult for me to use the trigger. And I thought, I don't know, he seemed to have some problems, but anyway. Essentially, this is a safety unit, and unless that blade is depressed, the actual trigger blade itself, which is the black bit, won't fire. Now, for example, if you pull that black trigger blade, the gun goes click and you think, oh, it's a dry fire, this, that and the other. That's actually a safety feature. I won't criticise the Americans, but they have quite a litigious culture, and Savage have put a lot of effort into having a light trigger and a crisp trigger that is not going to be a risky trigger, because, again, I'll show you, if I don't push that orange blade in, that will just go quick, it's as dead as a dodo, totally safe. But if I use the orange blade like that, it gives me a very nice crisp clean break. I'll weigh that in a minute. Now, this guy I was watching a video on was kind of saying, well, it's not really very good. Essentially, if you just look at that and treat that physically as a 2-stage trigger like many people have got used to on air rifles, what is the problem at all? You can feel for the trigger, you're not going to set it off. You can squeeze it gently like that. That's the first stage, and then you've got very crisp second stage pressure with no, I mean, let me just have a little detailed look at that. How much over travel have I got there? How much actual creep have I got there? I've got 0 creep and about let me just look again at the over travel. The over travel was, maybe 2 millimeters on break, and then I can squeeze through and go further if I want to, but I don't need to. So essentially, I actually don't have a problem with Savage triggers, and compared to a lot of American rifles, the Savage Aki trigger is pretty good, to be honest. So I've no quibbles with that. I'll get a trigger gauge in a minute and I'll weigh that, but it's pretty light. Back end here, solid aluminium bar. We're not going to get any battle rattle, as it's called, with that. And we move into sort of an AR-15 back end MDT. Now, in the mid stage here, we've got an adjustable cheek piece. There are 2 adjusters here to lock it in position. We may or may not need to take it in or out to get the bolts in or out. Now, again, if I'm brutally honest, this cheek piece, it's quite flat and it's quite wide. So it does require a bit more of a head roll than a kind of head placement. But since I'll probably hang on to this rifle, I will modify it, possibly, if I don't find it super comfortable. But again, depending on what your night vision unit is, you might have your eye welded to the back of the scope anyway, and your cheek's almost going to be floating. It's not like the good old days where everybody needed cheek weld to get this perfect sight picture. It kind of works the opposite way around. And of course, on a digital night vision scope, there's no issue with parallax because you're only looking at one screen that's got the crosshair and the image projected onto that screen, so there's no issues with parallax on those kind of things. Focus is different to parallax, remember. The back end here, we've got a butt hook, which might be nice with a tactical rifle, precision rifle, whatever, but it's a hunting rifle. I might use it. If it's on a bipod, I might use it. I will more than definitely have a bipod on it. We've got spacers here so we can change the length of pull. Fairly solid rubber recoil pad, which is gripping nicely into my shoulder. I could of course remove or add more spacers if I wanted to. I'll have a look at that in a moment. Magazine release catch is there. The magazine's a rotary unit. We have a break and I'll get some tools and get some ammo and have a little look at that. But this will be getting a full review in the long run, because this is actually a gun I have, to be fair, chosen. I won't say it wasn't at a very attractive price, but it actually, when I looked at it, there were quite a few of them, and I thought, that's kind of ideal, and although not perfect for me in terms of I like a Macmillan or something like that on my hunting guns, but there we go. I think we're going to get on with this. So let's just grab some tools, have a look at some dimensions and the trigger. Right, first things first, let's see what it weighs. Switch this on, put it into grams, because I don't use freedom units, as some of my American viewers like to call them. So in grams we have 3,492 grams, which is £7 11.2 ounces. That's number one for you. Number two, let's have a look at the overall length is 36.5 inches, which is 929 millimeters. Barrel length is 18 inches, 460 millimeters. Bolt travel is 48 millimeters, or near as thereabouts. Length of pull is, and we'll put length of pull to the actual black blade there, not the red one. That is 13 and, oh dear, 5/8, which is 347 millimeters. I'd probably go for a 14-inch 357, something like that, but it's fine, I'll get on with it. And again, it's only a smaller, lighter rifle. Right, barrel diameter. Barrel diameter, let's just switch these on. Barrel diameter is parallel and it's 20.3. Savage tend to button rifle their barrels, but in fairness, I haven't seen a Savage rimfire rifle assembled, because I believe they're made in Canada. I went to the Savage factory a couple of months ago, October it was, and got Centre Fires, and I've been there a couple of times, shot plenty of Savage Centre Fires. They're usually pretty good barrels, to be fair. The rimfires have never surprised me either, because over the years I've done quite a few rimfire reviews, both in 17 HMR, 2.2 rimfire. I've also done kind of a crossover in 17 Hornet. I absolutely adore the 17 Hornet cartridge, so that also as well, but because that's a centre fire, and that was made in New England rather than Canada. So what else is I going to do? Let's have a look at the trigger now. Let's just pop this on, wait for it to set up, let's put it in grams, zero that. Again, if you watch my videos you realise you have to pull these quite slowly. We got 654 grams. That is £1 7.1 ounces. Let's go for a second repeat on that one. Go back to grams, click that there, and again very carefully add it on and just draw it very carefully, adding the pressure. 587 grams, and that is £1 4.7 ounces. Now personally I'll probably try and add a little bit of weight to that. I don't know fully about the adjustability or modification of the trigger yet, but I'm going to try and add a little bit more, because again, this is a hunting rifle. I'm probably going to be shooting it in the cold, in the dark, at night, wearing gloves with night vision for review purposes. So that's that. But there are a lot of people out there who really do love really light triggers, and especially if you're going to use it for more targeting or varminting precision stuff, that's ideal. And again, it is super crisp, so what is not to like? Right, the next stage is I'm going to open a gun cabinet, get another gun out, rob a scope off it and put it onto this. I'm also going to get a bipod too. Right, we're back in the room. This is a slightly unusual video for me, but I quite like it. It's a bit of fun actually. I don't normally do a completely, sort of free reign video and just let you watch what I do in my armoury every day. Right, this is an Arken Zulus scope, and I put zip ties on there just to give me a little bit of focusing ease. But I want those off because some fishing coasters have come, so we'll do that as part of the procedure. I then want to take off the scope. Oh, and that's got torque above what we can get off with that. So let me just grab a non-torque wrench, which we'll do with this one. Now this one was put on particularly tight because I was using a sort of Weaver or Picatinny to dovetail adapter set, and these came off one of our favourite internet auction sites, and those kind of just click in like that, and it changes it from a Picatinny or a Weaver to a dovetail. So I just need to just undo these now. I'm just going to back this right off. YouTube will no doubt ban this video because it shows excessive amounts of gun modification, but do you know what? Here's one for you, my viewers. You'll probably enjoy it. So that's all these are. So essentially they just go on like that and they change a dovetail to a Picatinny or a Weaver. But anyway, let's just get those out of the way because we don't need those now because we've got Picatinny on this rifle. If I can just wiggle it out there, drop that on the floor, it doesn't matter. Right, what else do we want off this? I want the sling off this. That will just come off like that. That will come off there like that. Casually just drop that on there. Now, normally I'm not a fan of fake Harris bipods, but this is actually a fake Harris bipod. I have a lot of proper Harris bipods, which is steel, but funnily enough, I discovered that there are these ones with the carbon legs, which I haven't yet broken one off, and I do have 3 of them. And I tend to use them on air guns and lighter rifles, you know, the ones without recoil that I'm not kind of loading into with shoulder pressure. And they worked all right, to be fair. So you know, long live the Chinese. These are obviously made there, not in the good old US of A, but they do work, and there's obviously some copies better than others because these ones have been pretty reliable. Let's just see if we can get that on there. And then once it's on there, we can stand the gun up so you can see it in all its glory. There we go. Right, next step, let's get that thread adapter off. It is a 1/2 inch 28, and I did somewhere, yes, there is a sound moderator with appropriate fuel by Hornady sticker, because this is 17 HMR, it's going to be seeing a lot of 17 HMR. Now I will be taking this moderator off and cleaning the barrel, as I do with every new rifle. Just making sure that's going on there smoothly, because that doesn't seem to want to just fit on there for some reason. And it's the correct thread, or is it? No, that's it, got it now. It's very fine pitch, that thread, so you've got to be really careful with them to not cross thread them. Pop that on there. Oh, and what do you know it, the sticker isn't aligned, but we can put a new sticker on there. Next step, right, we've got the Zulus scope. So I'm going to be about here. I want that probably about there. I mean, I can change that on the mount, but just for the minute I'm going to put that on its rearmost setting. So I'll just spin these up with a torque wrench. Because now we've got proper Picatinny to Picatinny without a dovetail adapter in between. I don't need to be excessive with the brutality to make sure everything's going to work fine. I'll just put that there. I suspect I might just want to bring that back 1 notch. So, as well as being a savage B17 Precision day, this is a bit of an Arken Zulus day. So just drop this back off here. And as you can see on the underside there, we have 3 screws holding it onto its intermediate mount. So if I just pop these out, it was set up super short, you see, because it's been on a shorter bolt action rimfire. But if I now undo these, I can just add 1 stage in length to it, to be honest, which will just give me back that eye relief I wanted. And because this is one of the reasons I wanted that gun, because in the daytime I may well put on it, we've actually got 4 screw holes on here, so there must be another screw back in the box, which I'll have ditched for now. I can pop that back in at a later time. But yeah, as I was saying, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to put it on something with a slightly longer Picatinny rail, because it gives me that slightly more versatility for scope mounting. And you know, daytime shooting, it's not like nighttime and night vision, it's not like daytime vomiting. You generally have a little bit less time, and you don't want anything to be a hassle, anything to be a difficult fit. You want it straight to hand, straight to your eye, and straight on. Now, I'm only assembling this a little bit loose for the moment. I'll sort it out. I'm mainly doing it to show you. So now, that's probably about right now, and that'll give me a little bit of variety between different shooting positions. I might move it back another one. We shall see. So, what else have we got now? Right. On the sides, we've got a load of M-lock rail. So I can put as many bits of M-lock on here as I want. Now, review guns being review guns, I tend not to put metal M-lock on them because it can scratch them a little bit. And this is actually polymer M-lock, but it isn't just quite as easy to flick into position and get it on, but we shall have a go. And there's one, and there's two. So that's the M-lock now, so my illuminator can go on the side. So when I'm shooting this gun, I've got thumb control here of my illuminator. So there we go, that was what I was intending to do, and I suppose theoretically I should be able to look at a gun and see what I want from a gun. I don't need to necessarily get hands on to know 90% of what's going to go on with it. So there you go. Now the last thing I was going to promise you is I need to get some ammunition out and see if that is a 10 round or a 5 round magazine. I'll just pop that gun there, one moment please. Right, 15.5 grain Hornady NTX ammunition. Let's have a little chat about that in a minute as well. But for now, let's just have a go at loading this. So that went in easily. 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if we're going for the magic 10. 6, 7, 8, 9. Was that 9 or is it 10? 10. Should we just see if we can get an 11th one in there? Let's have a little look. No, we can't. Right. So that's good. That's going to go there. I'm not going to put it in there now, obviously, because that's a live magazine. But we get 10 rounds in there. I'm going to try and get hold of some more of these magazines because in the dark, you don't really want to be messing around loading stuff. Just take it out of your pocket, swap it, put another one in. I will unload that now because I don't want a live magazine sitting to hand in the army. Right, let's talk about these 15.5 grain NTX bullets for the 17 HMR. Right, 17 HMR, 17 caliber, 17 grain bullet. That's what we all came up with. I don't know what it is, 15 years ago when I first got one, and it worked really, really well. We've since times had the 20 grain XTP and the 15.5 grain NTX. The XTP is a hollow point. It expands a little bit more slowly, I feel, but I do feel it's probably the most accurate of the three if you want to talk about punching holes in paper. I think it's maybe because there's maybe some slightly lower production quantities, maybe quality control is a little teeny bit higher, but there is a fundamental factor with 17 HMR which makes it really hard to make, in the fact that that starts out as a 22 WMR case. They've got to put the priming compound in the bottom, and then they've got to swage the neck down to 17 caliber from 22 caliber. Now normally on a centerfire piece of brass, you know, like a, I don't know, let's say it's a 22 Hornet that put into 17 Hornet, it gets swaged down, reduced in diameter by a press, and then it's re-annealed, it's heated up and it's heat treated and it's quenched or cooled, whichever they need to do to it to give it the correct metallurgy and the mechanical properties. Now of course you cannot do that on a rimfire cartridge that's already got its priming compound in the bottom, which means that for 17 HMR there has always had to be a compromise between swaging it to correct size and tolerance and actual mechanical strength and mechanical stiffness, against the fact that you don't want it to crack and you don't want it to be too soft. So you've always got to balance that out, and it makes it a particularly difficult thing to get quality control on. It's not a fault, it's not a mistake, it's just a fundamental factor with this small but perfectly formed and horrendously useful cartridge, but it's just life. You can't do magic in engineering. In a 17 Hornet or a 17 Remington, swage that brass down all you want, re-anneal it, you get the neck properties back exactly as you want them. Same whether it's a 260 or a 65, any cartridge in the world can be re-annealed, any centerfire can be re-annealed after it's been swaged. Therefore you get the ideal metallurgical properties of the case neck. Once the priming compound is in, like a 22 WMR, which is what this fundamentally starts out as, you cannot redo it. 22 WMR, not a problem because it's the size you want already. 22 LR, not a problem, it's the size you want it already. But they get primed before they get swaged. So there you are still, I mean, it's obviously swaged nearly to its final dimensions, but that neck for the 17 HMR and the 17 HM2 in the same way is a fundamental principle that makes 17 HMR hard to manufacture. But anyway, so tell you a bit more about these. 17 grain bullet, runs fast, about 2,550 feet per second. It expands quickly and it works pretty well. I think the 20 grain is a little bit slower expanding. It's doing about 2,400 feet per second off the top of my head. And I do find it a little bit more consistent, a little bit more accurate. Perhaps that's because it's a slightly larger, slightly heavier bullet that still works perfectly within the twist rate. A little bit more length of bullet shank in the neck to give it a bit more straightness. I don't know, but it just seems to work a teeny bit better in the general cross-section of 17 HMR rifles that I have. Now we flip over to this ultra teeny tiny 15.5 grain copper NTX bullet. Now to be fair, I say it's teeny tiny, it's probably pretty much similar size to the 17 grain lead bullet, but of course it's non-toxic. Now I'm not into non-toxic because of any legal requirement. The reason I shoot non-toxic is pretty much all of the rabbits and hares, even some of the foxes in a different cartridge, but all of the rabbits and hares I shoot go to a falconer for feeding his hawks, and so the falcons of various different types. Any kind of lead, any kind of bird of prey, it's dead. If it's in its diet, if it's just dead, pretty much like that. Even if it's in the air, it's dead. So you can't shoot small animals that with highly frangible varmint bullets with any bullet with any lead in it. Simple fact, if it's going into the food, into the bird industry like that, can't be done. So I use the NTX. Now, these run pretty quick. Can't remember what it says on the box. It says on the box 2525 feet per second at the muzzle, which is pretty similar to the 17 grain VMAX. The downside is it's got a slightly lower BC. I'm not into BC for hashtag long range or super ballistic performance. It's just the simple fact that they are a little bit more twitchy in the wind and they don't carry their energy quite as well. Just fundamental fact of life, fact of physics. It's nothing to do with marketing or this, that and the other. That is a great bullet, but I would say that rabbits and hares, you pretty much do have to guarantee a headshot. And depending on what scope you're using in night vision, a headshot at night with night vision, you need pretty good screen resolution and you need pretty good magnification as well as a good stable position, shooting performance, etc, etc. So that is a little bit of my experience with different types of 17 HMR ammo. I use a lot of these because they're exactly what I need for the predominant use of my the quarry I'm shooting. It goes into the food industry for wild birds, but I've got a big rabbit shooting job to do, and that is not going to be the same thing. That's a pest control thing. That's going to be 17 grain VMAX or 20 grain XTPs because it's just shoot, because that's the problem that we've got to encounter with that one. But there we go. So, right. I hope you've enjoyed that very odd but very natural live video today. This is me, and at least I'm not talking to myself in the garage. We'll see more of this rifle in use. I've just put a video last night from using the Zulus scope, and in fact there's one thing I'm going to do finally on that while on screen. I was out shooting some rabbits last night with 2-2 rimfire actually, and I had this on it as you've just seen me take it off now. And there are a few things about this Zulus scope that I like, a few things I'm not loving totally. Let me tell you a little bit more about it while I put this fishing coaster on, because this fishing coaster is going to help me with one of my niggles about this scope. Image quality on it is very good. The laser illuminator is quite good. I wouldn't like to comment on laser illuminators because there are some factors which not everybody seems to be agreeing on or happy with, and I have to say I favour not talking about them for these reasons. The scope is very small. It's a lot of people like compact, especially airgun shooters. I'm just tightening that on there now so you can see I can now just focus that quite easily there. I'll probably just trim these a little bit shorter in a minute. In fact, let's just bang them off now because obviously they're probably sticking up in front of my head. But anyway, so what do I like about it? It's small, it's compact, it comes with the Picatinny mount. There's going to be some mounting options. It comes with the illuminator, and this is the LRF with a rangefinder. I like the rangefinder, it works, but you do have to program the whole thing using a smartphone paired to it through the app. I'm not really an app fan. You don't need the smartphone for everyday use. You just press the rangefinding button and it gives you the calculator drop, but you do have to do your initial programs with your smartphone and set up your ballistic table and then copy it across over the Wi-Fi. Uses 18650 flat top batteries. I like that because you just undo that, you can swap it, you don't need to mess around with additional cords. It records sound, it records video, it takes stills. Reticle focus at the back's pretty good. You get good on-screen image. It's not too critical with a pinhole, so if your eye moves around a little bit at the back, you still keep a good image. You've not really got any eye relief, so don't seriously think about putting on anything much bigger than a 223, I'm afraid. Although some scopes say, oh, it's great, you can use it on XYZ cartridge, it'll take this amount of joules of energy. Yeah, try that when it's 35mm from your eye, and I'll be the one that takes you to hospital afterwards. But on a small rimfire, or an air rifle especially, great, not a problem at all. Mounting options are going to become more frequent, more available for them, so you can chop them and change them around a little bit. Lens cap on the front, not a problem. You know, the focusing with that on is a lot better. If it's not got that on, when you're focusing it, you know, left-handed if you're a right-handed shooter, of course you completely block the illuminator, so you can't focus if you can't see it. From the right it's fine, but you know, not everybody shoots ambidextrous. So I put some zip ties on the top just so I could kind of creep over the top and niggle it left and right that way, rather than trying to wrap my hand on it. And that fishing coaster is going to be better to just get it, just to niggle it straight into position, because these little, you know, these little tweaks, they can be very critical at night to get the best image quality. And you'll see in some of the video I've done, you know, if you're hunting, you don't need it in perfect focus. It helps, but sometimes time is more pressing upon you than just needing that. If you're obsessed with wanting to show off everything you're doing, then yes, you will want to film it to the best of your abilities and the best of the technical factors. But anyway, that's another factor. The focus on the Zulus here, the IR, twist it out to get the longer range. When it first came, it was a bit stiff, there was a bit of swarf in here and I couldn't get it to focus out to the longer distances, but I have now and that's working all right. It's got 5 stages of illumination intensity, it works okay. I'm pretty sure it's a laser that's in there, so read into that what you want. Things I really don't like about it. The buttons all work, the menu system inside's quite good, but again, if you've got gloves on, you're kind of trying to feel which button's which, and you're kind of a bit playing the clarinet. And again, I was just doing a bit of video editing earlier, and I'm constantly swapping reticle colour, not through choice, just because I'm pressing the wrong button by accident. You can record, you can, you know, all the usual things on it. And there is also a mechanical control here. It's this very little one here, and that does the zoom. This one goes from 5 up to 20 times magnification, which is very good. But that is a real fiddle trying to operate that in the dark with gloves on or anything like that, and you're constantly catching the off button and turning it off and things like that. So that is a bit of a pain, to be quite honest. I have a favourite night vision scope. This is a good one, but this isn't my favourite night vision scope. And I like the favourite one because I wouldn't even say it has the very best image quality, but what I would say is it's the easiest one to use day in, day out, with the best control system on it. And if you haven't twigged which one it is yet, watch some of my other videos, because you'll see it on a lot of occasions. The rangefinder on this does kind of work, everything's all right with that. But you see a lot of people comment on the video and say, oh, how have you managed to get your rangefinder to illuminate exactly where your reticle is? Well, that's just luck, to be honest, and it'll probably change with this gun, because that illuminator, and yes, you can see I've got some scratches on here already because it's been bumped and bashed around. That illuminator is projecting parallel to the body of this scope. It's kind of the best you can do with it, because if you start having to re-zero an illuminator as well, you're getting multiple different kind of angles of things going on, and you know, you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So it's better off just being in perfect parallel. Now inside, you've effectively got a camera projecting your night vision image on a screen, and that screen's got a reticle superimposed on it, and at the back end you're looking at that screen effectively. So that reticle moves around that screen, and it isn't until you zoom up that, you know, on the higher levels, it shows in the centre of the screen. Does it really matter? it's a bit of a pain if it's right in one of the corners, but you can artificially shim the scope and move it around so that the scope is physically different and nearer, so that when it is zeroed electronically, you're not going to have any issues with it. Similarly, that's the same with the illuminator. The illuminator is pointing where it is, and if you want to shim the scope so the illuminator points exactly where it's going to be when your reticle's zeroed, you can do that. Or you can just get on with going shooting and know that your illuminator just pings a little bit left and you'll aim a little bit right. And of course at night, laser rangefinder is pinging out that laser and you can see it clear as day in the image. So it's a night vision scope primarily. Everybody goes, oh yeah, you can use them in daylight, this, that, and the other. You can use them in daylight, and it does make them so much easier to zero. But I do get quite frustrated with people who think that these digital night vision scopes, which will work in daylight, are some kind of awesome long-range shooting tool. None of them are. It's a fact, none of them are. Yes, it's nice at night. You can see, you can range everything, you get a ballistic readout, everything like that. But long-range shooting in serious daylight use is a totally different kettle of fish. And although these will do it a little bit, they're not perfect for it. So just accept the limitations and remember, this is something that's designed to work at night, not in the daylight specifically. And that's why at night it's great, you can see your laser, you know exactly what's going on. It gives you that secondary aim point, ping, off you go. Secondary factors, the reticle choices are all right. The secondary aim point for longer distance shots is a little bit tiny. It can be a little bit tricky to see. Some people have better eyes than others, but even so, it's a little bit too small in my opinion. But there we go. Right, thank you for watching. That's been just a day of me ranting while I'm getting guns done and just doing stuff in my garage. So thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you for all your views in 2023. We're now in 2024, so you know, keep track. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, click the notification bell, because it's not about learning everything about one item from one video. It's about watching the channel and picking up something I might have put on last week's video and applying that to this week's video. For example, applying everything I've learned about every rifle I've ever reviewed, I looked at a picture of a rifle and thought, well, this rifle's going to do what I need it to do, so I'll get this rifle. Here's a perfect example of that. That's what you can get from watching reviews and watching a review channel. It's not always about every specific item. It's about learning facts that some item might highlight that you can apply to all the other things you might be interested in. So there we go. Right, we've done all the like, subscribe, comment and all that kind of stuff. Go to the end of the video. There's a link at the end of the video for the 2024 British Shooting Show. It is only about 7 or 8 weeks away now, end of February, NEC Birmingham. So I'll be there. Please come along. If you see me, say hello. Tell me I'm an idiot, tell me I'm not. I don't really care. I don't think I am. Quite a lot of you, about 500,000 of you don't think I'm a total idiot. So there we go. And hopefully by then we'll have done a little bit of night vision shooting with this. And we shall see how we get along. Right. Guess what? I'm a little bit happier today because it's not raining. And that has been, I think, for anybody in the UK, 2023, July onwards was just a wet, damp, miserable, pointless existence. And yes, we could still get out and do shooting, but it wasn't really very pleasurable. Anyway, it's sunny today, hooray! The weather forecast next week is good. It's going to be cold, it's going to be bright, pretty much quite perfect conditions for summer. So I'll be enjoying life. Right, thank you all for watching, because I enjoy doing this. I enjoy interacting with you all, so please don't forget those comments. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.